Hey folks, I'm William. This is Runeforged. Welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be ranking tier 4 priest spells for Shadowdark, and I'm going to be giving you a little bit of an explanation for why I'm going to be putting them in each of these various different tiers. Based on some of the comments that I've got in previous videos, it does sound like my group plays the game a little bit differently than a lot of you do. So I'm really curious to hear if your experience with these spells is different from mine. So definitely let me know that down in the comment section of this video. Before we launch into the actual rankings, I want to take just a couple seconds to talk about how I am doing the various different ratings. So S tier spells are going to be the ones that I'm definitely going to be picking up ASAP and have the ability to dramatically impact the course of a battle, which is a single successful spell cast. A tier spells are also ones I'm going to be picking up ASAP, but they're probably not as game or encounter breaking as their S tier counterparts. B tier spells are still pretty good, and while I probably will pick them up eventually, they're not necessarily something that I would rush to be picking up right away. C tier spells are just kind of mediocre, and while they are okay in their own right, these are ones that I probably wouldn't use my limited spell selections to pick up, just because there are other better options. D tier spells are the ones that are truly terrible, and not only would I not use one of my limited spell selections to pick one of them up, but I'd also be really hesitant to use them if I got them in the form of a Wanderer's Scroll, just because I think there are probably better things that I could be doing with that action. Now, I don't think we're going to come across too many D tier spells in Shadowdark, but I do like to have that category there just in case. All right, so without further ado, let's get started ranking these tier 4 priest spells for Shadowdark. All right, so the first one on our list is the Commune spell. And in some of the previous tiers, I have mentioned that I find that the divination spells to be a little bit situational. There are definitely situations where, if you can predict the fact that you're about to walk into an ambush, that's obviously really valuable information. It could spare your party from a pretty devastating TPK. But there are also plenty of times when I feel like I cast a divination spell and I don't really get any sort of actionable information out of that spell. Some of this comes down to GM fiat. Some of this is like player creativity and making sure that they're asking the right questions, stuff like that. But unlike some of the previous divination spells on the priest spell list, I actually think that Commune is a lot more consistent. You are communing directly with your deity, who presumably has your best intentions at heart. They're not lying to you. And also you get 3 different questions so that you can make sure that you can try to come at something from multiple different angles to try to get something that's truly actionable in terms of the information that you're getting out of casting the spell. So for that reason, again, a little bit more consistent than other divination spells that we've seen previously. And for that reason, I think that because it has the ability to avoid TPK scenarios and is a little bit more consistent, I feel pretty comfortable putting Commune in the A tier on this list. All right, so next we've got the Control Water spell. And this one is definitely very situational, and also another one that is extremely dependent on GM fiat. Now, I do recognize that there's like a whole branch of players, like the whole reason that they play role-playing games is to demonstrate their creativity through spells like Control Water, and I don't want to take anything away from those players, but I think for a standard game at a standard table, and mostly due to the fact that priests have such limited spell selections, only being able to pick up 2 of the available 6 tier 4 spells, I really just cannot rate Control Water particularly highly. Even though I recognize that in certain situations, especially with a very creative player and a very permissive GM, the spell can be very powerful. Again, I think at a standard table, I just don't think that I can justify picking this up over other spells in this tier. So for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and put this in the C tier. But having said that, I definitely want to know the most creative use that you've seen for Control Water in your games. So let me know that down in the comment section of the video. All right, so next we've got Flame Strike. And this is a really interesting case because I really personally want to like Flame Strike because I like kind of the thematic nature of being able to smite your enemies as a priest. It is only 2d6 damage, and you can only pick it up as early as level 7. And so that's like 7 damage on average per successful cast. And that just seems pretty underwhelming to me for a level 7 character. And is probably a lot less than, a lot of the other characters in your party are going to be able to do with their action. So like I alluded to, pretty much everyone in your party is capable of doing damage, but there are probably very few people in your party that are able to bring some of the other priest specific utility that some of the other tier 4 priest spells provide. So for this reason, it is pretty hard for me to recommend Flamestrike as one that I would definitely pick up all the time. But it is something I could possibly see myself picking up, mostly because I think a lot of the other spells in tier 4 are relatively weak. So it's not something that I would be rushing out to get, but it is something I could see myself picking up situationally, especially if there is maybe another priest in the group who's handling more of the healing and support role. So for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and put Flamestrike in the B tier, though I probably would put it towards the bottom, maybe bordering on C. So next we've got Pillar of Salt, and this is another really interesting ability because I think it is a little bit weaker than it appears to be at first glance. I do really like the idea of being able to lock down a single opponent for basically an entire combat, and if you get very lucky, permanently. But the fact that it only works on level 5 creatures or lower, and again, you're only able to pick this up at level 7 or higher. That means that level 5 creatures are going to be a lot less of a challenge to you than they would be kind of earlier in your level progression. Now, I don't want to discount the power of completely locking down a particular enemy. That does have a lot of value in the game. But unfortunately, because this is a focus spell, and there are so many other good crowd control spells that the priest has that they get earlier in their progression and are not limited to a specific level of opponent. I'm thinking specifically about Command and Blind. It really does make Pillar of Salt a little bit less attractive when you're thinking about it in competition with those other spells. Also, the fact this is a tier 4 spell and therefore is a DC 14 to cast, and the fact that you need to successfully focus on that spell for 3 rounds in order to have that permanent effect, actually makes it a little bit unlikely that you're going to be consistently petrifying enemies permanently with this spell. So again, this is not something that I'm going to be rushing out to pick up right away. But I do see it as kind of a situational pick and something I might pick up with my last spell of the tier 4. So for that reason, I think I'm also going to be putting Pillar of Salt into the B tier. All right, so next we've got the Regenerate spell, which again is another pretty solid healing ability. Again, it's really hard to scoff at any sort of heals in this game, especially considering that the priest class is the one that pretty much is the only one, or one of the very few classes that gets access to powerful healing abilities. So it is only 1d4 per round that you're able to channel it on a character. But having said that, we've talked in previous videos about the fact that, bringing somebody from dying up to even just 1 hit point is an absolutely huge improvement and can absolutely swing a fight in one direction or another. One thing to point out is this is a focus spell, which is not inherently bad, but that does mean it is competing with a lot of the other focus spells that the priest has that are very powerful. And also, again, the fact this is a tier 4 spell and therefore is DC 14 to cast means that it is actually pretty unlikely that you're going to be able to sustain this for over the course of a really long fight. But again, because this is a healing spell and because healing is so powerful in these games, I don't really think I have a choice. I feel like it definitely needs to go into the A tier alongside of Commune. Finally, we've got the Wrath spell, which is another very interesting case. Wrath spell is another one that I really want to like because I just love the imagery of a priest or a paladin tapping into their divine power and just going in and bashing in some skulls. It's a very powerful piece of imagery for me. But unfortunately, again, for a lot of the same reasons that we talked about with Flamestrike, the priest is one of the few classes that has the ability to bring in these other very powerful healing and utility spells. And I think in a lot of situations, I just don't know if there's a lot of time or actions available for them to really, go in and start bashing skulls. And given the fact that in order to get the most value out of the spell, you really, so it lasts for 10 rounds, so you want to be able to attack during as many of those rounds as possible. So in order to get a lot of value out of the spell, you're going to have to be consistently auto-attacking over a pretty long period of time. Now, I don't think this is a terrible spell by any stretch of the imagination, but I think if before you pick it up, you really need to stop and ask yourself, how often are you able to wade in and get into combat on your priest at these kind of higher levels? If the answer is that you are mixing it up quite a bit, then maybe Wrath could be a pretty decent pickup. But if you're not, it's definitely one that I would consider skipping. Another really important consideration is you might want to check with your GM to see if the +2 attack bonus on this spell stacks with the like a +2 magic weapon that you might be using on your character. If it doesn't, I think that reduces the utility of the ability quite a bit. And it also is a lot less useful on priests that are, don't already have a pretty high attack bonus, because it's much less likely that you actually be able to hit with these attacks. So for all those various different reasons, and because I think there's already some other better spells on this list, I think I would also put Wrath in the same tier as Flame Strike, and go ahead and put it, probably towards the bottom of the B tier. So I am going to rearrange these just a little bit. I think I'm going to put Pillar of Salt towards the top of B tier, with Flame Strike and Wrath there towards the bottom. All right, so with that, I think this is the finalized version of our tier list. So for me personally, that means that on my priest, I'd most likely be picking up Commune and Regenerate with my 2 available spells known, although I do think there is an argument for some of the other spells on this list as well. All right, so if you enjoyed this video, please consider checking out my other Shadowdark related tier list, which should be popping up on your screen right about now. And also, please let me know your thoughts on this video down in the comment section below. Do you agree with these rankings? If not, why? And also, which of these 2 tier 4 spells are you most likely to pick up on your own priests? All right, I think that's about it for now. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful day. Bye.